So this is a story of last week when I was driving down to Portland, and I realized that I've never actually been on a joyride. You see, I was driving and thinking about what story I was going to tell you because I had a deadline that they gave me, and I thought, oh shit, it's coming up. And I thought, but I've had so many trips I've been on, so many stories, and I thought about Italy, or maybe Berlin, or maybe Bali. And then I realized that I went to Italy because of a heartbreak, and Bali because of a divorce, and Berlin because I hated my job, and there I was going to Portland because I didn't get the job. You see, earlier that week I got let go from Hold, and if you're an actor, you know what that means. For 2 months I was in the hopes that my dream job was going to come through and I was going to get my big break. And just to find out earlier that day that that didn't happen. I was devastated. I cried. Life was over. And I decided to go somewhere because I needed to get out of LA because LA sucks. You know, all the feelings. And then I packed my car, put my 14-year-old dog in his little booster seat, and off I found myself going to Portland. Now, you might think, why Portland, right? So I had read Wild, you know, I'm not sure who has read that book. And the way she described it back was at the end of the book of how she met her husband and been through this enlightening trip. And, you know, like a Oscar, almost an Oscar-nominated movie later and 2 kids. I was like, Portland sounds magical, I should go there. Also, as a broken actor, you know, who doesn't have a job, I thought, where do I know someone? So in Portland, I know a friend of a friend who I've met like once, maybe twice, and I thought, that's good enough. So I reached out to her and I was like, hey girl, what's up? You know, like in the DMs, they sweet working. Like I saw the picture of you hiking somewhere. And I said, hey, so I'm thinking I need to go somewhere. Can I come to Portland? And she was super graceful. She's like, of course. And I told her my dog was coming and her cat Ralph wasn't happy about it. So she's like, okay, we'll see how that goes and, you know, play by ear. And I was like, great. So I packed my car with as much as I could pack in and I got on the road at 9 p.m. on a Thursday. Now, as I'm sitting in the car realizing, while sober, that I had never been on a joyride, I start to think, why have I always been running away? And this is where the story gets super serious. Brace yourselves. So when I was 9, my father was in his study and he wasn't feeling well. Turns out that he was having a heart attack. Now, my mother tried to get him to a hospital to the best of her might, and she wasn't able to. My father was 6'3", my mother was 5'2". So that became a real difficulty for her. When the pain became considerable and he could manage it, he finally agreed to let her take him to the hospital, which was a little too late. As they turned out of the complex where we lived in, my father, as my mother described, collapsed on her lap, and that was the last we ever saw of him. Now, I know this is heavy, but, you know, I'm here and everything is fine, so that's okay. But we lived in that house where he took his last breaths for many years, for about 10 years, because my father wasn't a planner, and you know, justice in Brazil, it's like, oh man, that takes forever. So we were there for about 10, 15 years when we were finally able to leave. And as soon as I was old enough, I did. I went to New York, as far away from all the history as I could. And what they say about New York is like the places of all the people who don't belong. So that sounded like the place for me. So there I was, driving to Portland, having mad realizations while sober at 9 p.m. on a Thursday. And I thought, shit, this is going to be a wild ride. The dog was sitting next to me, and we were 12 plus hours into this trip, committed. And 2 hours in, I thought, oh shit, that's really far. Can I make 12 hours? Oh man, I don't know. So I started thinking about my mother. You see, my mother never drove at night. She was always like, we're women. What if there's a flat tire, or if something comes up on the road, or there's creepy drivers, and there's all the reasons why never to drive at night, 99% of them in the fact that we were female. So I never did. Here I am, in this ripe age of, you don't need to know. And I'm like, I'm gonna do this. I was like, my dog is gonna be Louise, I'm gonna be Thelma, and we're gonna drive into the sunset, except there was no sunset, and it was really boring because it was just darkness, you know? So I thought, you know what? I got AAA, I got this, I think I can do it. Another hour goes by, and I'm like, no, I think I'm gonna turn around. You know, people go for drives at night. Maybe that's just what I did, you know? That's I went for a drive, and now I'm tired. I'm just gonna go home. It's fine. And then I talked to myself like I talked to my friends. And I was like, hell no, bitch. You're gonna go to Portland, and you're gonna enjoy it, okay? You're gonna sit in this car, and it's going to be amazing. The dog is snoring, wasn't into it, but I will say this. 12 plus hours later, as the sun was coming up on the Gold Coast of Oregon, I felt really proud. The first stop that we made was at a beach that seemed amazing on, Google. And I put the dog down, and the dog immediately just darted down this beach, and there were twigs everywhere, and I couldn't close the car, and I saw the ranger coming. And if you have a dog in LA, you know that dogs are not allowed anywhere, and you're gonna get a ticket, and that ticket's like $80, okay? That wasn't the beginning of my joyride in Portland. So I just started running after the dog, and as I got to the beach itself, I saw one dog and another dog and the smiley dog owners and people just walking to the beach with their surfboards, and I thought, well, maybe I want to get here. So then I put my towel down, and I just watched the dog frolic and get wet, and the shower I gave him like just an hour before it was completely ruined. But that's cool, So we stayed there for about an hour. I had gotten an Airbnb for that night. It was a nice little inn, I just thought 12 hours later that I would need some place to stay before continuing another 6 hours to Portland. And this place was kind of magical. I was on the phone with some other place trying to really be sure whether or not they would be cool with dogs when this place just popped up on my screen. That's how I remember it. And I thought, this is interesting, so I called them, and they were like, yeah, bring whatever dogs you want. It's totally cool. We don't care. There's no extra charge. Yeah, they can sit on any couch they want. And I was like, that's great. So there I'm at the beach. The clouds started to come in. I said, let's just go to this B&B and start this, maybe I need to sleep, 12 hours later. So we get there, we're the first ones there. We were there before the check-in time, but people, as I found out in Oregon, are so nice. And they were like, yeah, come in, just, make yourself comfortable, do whatever. Do you need water? Do you need coffee? Do you need this? I'm like, I'm good. So the dog plopped himself under this trampoline while the deer came to sniff him out, which was amazing. That really happened. And I thought, you know what, he's not gonna move, so I'm gonna go and just explore. I needed some much needed breath. And I turned off my phone. That felt really wild. It was amazing. It's amazing how attached we are to those things. I just immediately felt free. They had a waterfall. I walked down to it. I enjoyed the water and the sound of the water. And then I came back and grabbed that novel that I've been trying to read for a year and sat in the hammock and just watched the dog. And later that night, when the other guests arrived, we all sat together at this country dinner table, and we talked about our lives and the things that we love and the things that we do. And we were just equals, the same. Just happened to be random people in this one moment in time and in this one moment in this place. The food smelled amazing. I learned that food in Oregon is so good. It's like as good as the pictures you see in the magazines. Seriously, I think I put on 2 pounds while I was there. So we stayed there that night, and as the morning came, we continued our drives to Portland. Turns out, Portland is not so cool. I was really disappointed. I was expecting this beautifully artistic city, and it really was okay. As I met my friend of a friend, and we had dinner, we talked about each other and where we come from, and it was that one initial moment of recognition. We both realized that we kind of wanted to get away, so we rented this little house, cabin in the woods by a lake. And the dog was there, and it was really great. That night, we made a fire. It was a full moon, and we talked about love and boys and books for the future. And, by the end of the night, the fire was out, and we had s'mores, and we all smelled like a campfire, and we were making promises of forever friendship. And she's like, "I'm a really good friend." I'm like, "Me too. Gotta stay friends. We gotta stay in touch." And all those things. That time we were drinking wine, so that made total sense. And the next day, as we parted ways, I took a few more seconds to stay and take one more dip in the lake. And I watched the dog squint at the sun and feel the wind on his hair. And I walked into the water, and I felt the coldness on my skin and the flies. And dragonflies. One of them landed on my arm, and in Brazil we call them esperança, which means hope. So I felt, that's kind of cool, that's gotta mean something. So we got back in the car, and we started driving back to LA, and I started to think to myself, back to the task at hand, I gotta write this Joyride story. So I thought, okay, what are the joyful moments of that experience? So I wrote them down because I didn't want to forget. So here's number 1. The unbelievably tall pine trees and the incredible smell they give that perfume the air. Singing along to your favorite tunes as you drive, traveling back and forth in time through your memories. Watching your tiny dog have the time of his life, frolicking on the beach. Reading a book on the hammock, feeling the warmth of the sun on your face. The sound of happy giggling children on the trampoline. Jumping on the death trap. You guys, trampoline was like amazing. I recommend it. I feel like I need to get one for now, but jumping on the death trap myself, remembering what it felt like to be a child. Family dinners with friends, old and new, passing a joint under the stars, the smell of the dewy grass in the morning as it dries, and the sound of a waterfall reminding you that everything in your life passes. And as I wrote this down, I figured, none of the things I wrote about were actually about the destination. As I mentioned, wasn't really a fan of Portland. And it really dawned on me that, you know what? It's kind of cliche, but people are right. The joy really is in the journey. That's it, guys.